I wasn't really planning on doing a second part. And so what I did is I thought back about some other project management training I've done and what people found really useful and sort of super nerdy tools that you can use as you actually develop a project or think about tackling a project. So one of the things that we're going to talk basically about two major things today, two-ish. Yeah, we'll see how the time goes. One of them is about stakeholder management, because again, that is critical to success. And I'm going to give you a little tool to figure out how to do that. I alluded to it last time, but we didn't have time to really dig into it very much. And then we're going to walk through how to create, well, actually, we're going to do some like activities lists and creating a flow chart and then creating a Gantt chart. So it's sort of, that's where the really yummy part of taking a bunch of ideas and translating it into action, which of course, without that, it's just, ideas without action is just a dream, right? So if you want to actually make it happen, you got to know how to do it. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to do this guy. All right, so I'm going to move this over here. All right, so we're just going to jump right into it then. So what I'd like you to do as we get started here is I would like you to think about a project that you want to work on. And then literally, I want you to find some sticky notes, little, big, doesn't really matter. Some little ones. Look, I have the stripes. They actually call next time you buy sticky notes. I never buy them because I'm always getting them free as, swag at events and things like that. But next time you buy them, I actually had to buy them because I was doing a training and I had something happened with my kit and I didn't have enough. They actually have them named like Calypso or whatever. It's kind of funny. Anyway, so get out some sticky notes and I want you to be thinking in a piece of paper. I want you to be thinking about a project. And if you don't have a project ready or you're not really actively thinking about a project and you're like, I don't know what I should do, pick a birthday party or we're going to walk through my morning routine with my daughter. So you can do that just to practice because we really want to practice using the tools. Otherwise you won't remember. And yeah, before Shiloh asks, you'll get the recording. So you can always go back and slow it down and pause if you don't have enough time to work through it, or if, now is the time, like kind of once you know about it, you're going to start seeing about it and thinking about it. So next time you get a project or next weekend, you'll think, oh, well, we were going to sit down and build the deck or whatever it might be. And you can sit down and actually come back to the recording and kind of go through the process. So one of the things, before we get into the really nerdy part about the schedule, which is actually my favorite, I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because scheduling and figuring out how to get things done efficiently is really a logic puzzle. And and there is no right answer, really. It really depends on a lot of factors. So it gives you a lot of, as the manager, project manager, it gives you a lot of flexibility for how you execute, which is super fun. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about stakeholders. Now, you've seen this slide before, talked about this last time. And the worst thing in the world is to surprise somebody. So remember, stakeholders are anyone that has any interest in your project, intentional or otherwise. Anyone who can support it, drag it through the mud, help you get it done, whatever it might look like. All those people that care. Might be personal, might be professional. So decide when you're going, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a list of who cares about your project. So think about the project that you're thinking about and make a list of who cares about what you're up to. Prioritize that list, and I'm going to show you how to do the prioritizing. And then decide how you're going to manage the groups and when you know what's happening and how much influence do they have. So the next page is going to be, is the tool I want you to start using. Okay, so sketch this out on your notepad, just very simply. So what we're going to start looking at is there are a couple different ways you want to think about stakeholders. So the first one is low influence across the bottom here, low influence to high influence. So Think about low influence people. That might be my neighbor on my house build. I mentioned him last time. Pete, he is a really cool cat. He lives down the street. He has very low influence, but he's still around. I still want to connect with him. So when he goes and has coffee with his buddies at Burger King, when we can all stop social distancing, he'll give them all the lowdown, and he'll be the guy that is my biggest advocate. And then you have high influence people who directly affect the project, good, bad, otherwise. Things like when we do a big project that we need to get city approval for, well, the city is what we call the king's axe. It can kill the project, right? So you have to know who those people are and what they need to know. On the left side, we have need. Some people are low need. So Pete would mosey over and want to check it out if we weren't home, or if we were busy. It wasn't a big deal. And when there's some high need people, like if we think about people that need to know all the time, let's say your internal team. So like if we think about Meg and I are co-founders, and we own the company 50-50. So everything that is any kind of significant decision, Meg is involved in and I'm involved in. And so that's a very high need, right? So now that you've had time to sketch that thing out, excuse me, it's not the Rona, it's just allergies and a lot of talking on Zoom. So what we have is, so you have this drawn out, okay? Now I'm just gonna walk you through an example, and then I want you to start putting people in here. So let's talk about my house build. So I shared that story with you last time about how I rebuilt my 1898 farmhouse. Well, so a plumber is the great example of a low need, low influence person, right? I need a plumber for sure, but Tony was my guy. Tony the plumber, I thought sounded like a gangster name. I still think it's freaking hilarious. Anyway, so my Tony the plumber, if he somehow couldn't make it or somehow had a problem, I would just get a different plumber. Like all I needed for him was to say, hey, I need you to show up on April 1st and do the plumbing, and he would do it. And if that was a problem, then we would just swap him out. So he didn't have, and frankly, if he didn't like something, don't care, like make it work. So low influence, low need, like he didn't need to bug me all the time. Now, some of us, let's say that plumber had an intern that didn't know anything, or maybe he was a brand new plumber. So Tony the plumber has a huge amount of experience, and he's done several projects for us before. He knows his stuff. He's super pro. Tony Johnson Plumbing, if you need a good plumber in the Northern Hills. And so he's fantastic. Now let's say I hired a new kid who's just learning how to be a plumber. Well, he's going to need a lot more support, a lot more help. I'm going to have to talk to him more. Still low influence, but he's going to need me a lot more. So Tony, I just tell him where the bathrooms are, and that's about all like here's the floor layout of the house, and he just shows up when he needs to and does his magic. I don't have to talk to him at all. Now, a young kid who might just get started, like an intern or other kind of people in your life that might be maybe your spouse. Well, your spouse probably has high influence, right? So maybe it's a kid. Like think about working from home right now. This is probably your kids, right? It's like low influence, high need at the moment. So and that's those people. In a work context, perhaps that might be one of those. Maybe this is like an admin that needs to know everything that's going on, but doesn't have any influence over the project. Then we have my banker, right? Pretty low need after all the approvals, but very high influence, right? Like if I don't let him know what's going on, then he could really have a lot of trouble with how things are going. And so what I do, I proactively reach out to him, and I'll talk about that in a second and how you want to think about that. And then of course, the highest need and the highest influence person is me. I'm like Everyone's worst nightmare. This was my hair was super short. Look at that. Whew. I had it that short for like 10 years. A lot of people that know me from here and from the Northern Hills have never seen me with that short hair. But anyway, so I was like every general contractor's worst nightmare because I knew the project. I was running my own project management. I want to know what the hell's going on all the time. So, okay, so now that you have the idea of where everything goes, write down your people. You probably are already doing that. And so what you want to do then is have a strategy for communicating in each one of these buckets, or if people are kind of grouping, we tend to see the people group, then you could like, my banker, I call him about every other month, maybe once a quarter, and just say, hey, I'm doing great. Business is doing great. Thank you so much for all your support. We're awesome. And then when his bank president comes and says, hey, how did that loan, how is Rachel doing when we gave her that risky loan? That's a whole other big story. I'll tell you sometime over wine or something. And he could say, great, I just talked to her, she's doing great. And so that way he never has to question what's going on or how things are going. And then for low influence, low need people, it's just let them know when you need what they need to know. It might be that you send them, maybe those are we have a weekly newsletter. Maybe that's who those people go to. You read the newsletter or you don't read the newsletter. If you want our newsletter, by the way, just reach out, PM me, and we'll get you the stuff. Shelly can get you signed up. We have a weekly newsletter about all the things going on. That's one communication method. It might be that individuals, like we have this blueprint series next week where we're doing a video series every day about COVID and empathy and accountability and how to lead and how to think about coming out of social distancing and all of the stuff that we're all worrying about. Well, that starts on Monday. And so for people that I know personally or our CEO clients, I send them an individual email telling them about what it is and inviting them to attend. So we already kind of divide our stakeholder groups kind of intuitively. But if you're much more structured about it, the benefit of this is that you will not lose anyone through the cracks, because that's what usually happens is someone doesn't get the memo because you weren't organized enough about it. So what we would do in a class, if we had like a day, is the next step we would do is we'd create a communication plan where you would take your high need, high influence people. What do they need to know? When do they need to know it? How often? And are they just talking about milestones? Are they talking about more often? What content do they need? Do they need a high level, like just everything's green, or do they need details? So we would create a plan for all of those. And then once you have that plan, then you can just use that over and over again, and it's super easy. Takes a little work up front, but again, remember, project management is all about establishing your process, and then it makes everything else just go super fast and easy. All right. All right. Sorry, I got an alert on my phone for another meeting. I'm not covering it. That's Meg's. Okay, so what I'd really like you to do too, this is where our sticky notes come in, is that we're going to put together a little schedule, and it's normally we'd have a couple hours in class, so this is gonna be some specifics, and it's gonna go pretty quickly. So this is what I want you to do. Think about your project and take your normal pen and paper here, like I was doodling earlier. And what I want you to do is start a list. We're gonna identify main phases to complete. Actually, what I want you to do this time is identify the tasks that you need to do. So if we think about a deck project as an example, we need to clear the dirt away, or do some dirt work would be one. We would, and we could put them right on the sticky note or right on the list. So you would write dirt work, sticky note number 1, put that somewhere else. Dirt work, you would want to have some concrete for the posts, right? Concrete for the posts. So what we want to do here is create an actual list of all the activities that need doing. The great thing about that is you can lay those out on your desk, which is what we're going to do. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. Think about a project, either yours or pick one that you've done before. Maybe you have something coming up or you'd like to do. I'm going to give you a few minutes to write down. Think about like at least 6 tasks in an activity, and then maybe 10 at the most, because we don't have a huge amount of time. So write down a couple of the steps, a couple of the activities that you need to actually get it done. So what we're gonna, up here on the slide, this is what we're going to do. Identify tasks, determine who will do the work. That comes a little later, we'll get to that. Determine how long it will take, also comes later, and then determine the critical path. So let's just, for right now, get your sticky notes sorted out. I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna check my calendar, my clock. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. I normally get to look around and see when you're done, but I'm gonna just have to give you 2 minutes. I'm gonna make my own while you do that. All right, that's your 2 minutes. Okay, so then what you should have is a bunch of sticky notes that have the tasks on them. So for mine, they are so I'm going to do a deck just so you have, you have an example if you don't have one that you can work on right now. So dirt work, concrete for the posts. I have to attach it to the house. I have to do the framing. I have to do the top decking. I have to do the handrail. I have to refinish the house where we pulled away the siding to attach the house to the deck, or the deck to the house, and then finish landscaping. So those are the 2, 4, 6, 8 things that I have. And so then what we're gonna do is, what I want you to do is put them in the order that you want to see them. So then we have, for mine, the dirt work starts and then the concrete. Now, here's the interesting thing, and this is the fun part, is that sometimes you can do some things at the same time. So if you're an only person doing it, then you're clearly doing one thing at a time, sometimes, most of the time. But let's say that you have, some help. So let's say some things you have to do at the same time. You have to do dirt work, concrete, attached to the house, kind of in order, right? And then you have to do the framing. So you really can't do any one of those out of order, or even really at the same time. Could maybe do concrete and the attachment to the house at the same time. So I could rearrange that. And then you have to do the top decking, and then you can do the finished landscaping and the refinishing of the house and the hand railing, maybe all at the same time, depending on how you're finishing the hand railing. So that's kind of how you want to start thinking about it. We do this all the time, but we're going to give you some more skills to know, what do you do next? Because that's where a lot of us stop. Well, I got to do these 7 things kind of in that order. But then how do you actually organize and understand how long it's going to take you? Because yeah, if you don't know how long it's going to take you, you can't get a budget together for for labor or time. So this is the important things. Like a lot of us start a project on a Saturday, right? I'm like, oh, we'll get it done Saturday. And Sunday at dark, we're like scrambling to finish it. So this is one way that we're going to be able to do that. So we also have to know what are the critical things to do in order. Because if, let's say we spend, have you ever done a project or had someone else help you that they spend a huge amount of time on one thing and it's not even getting things done? Like you're like, listen, we have to go do this thing. This is the important thing. Well, how do you articulate what are the critical steps and what are nice to haves or things you can do anytime? Well, it's by doing a schedule. So one of the things that I'm going to talk through is how to think about getting out the door. So that's an easy one for most of us. So pause the deck example for a minute. And so this, my daughter, Alex, she's 11. Now, when I first put this together, she was much younger. She was probably in 3rd grade, 2nd grade, because she's walking to school. I was walking her to school, and this because the school's right nearby. So it was like several years ago when I first came up with this. So it's pretty fun to see it. So here's that list of things, the activities. I got to get up, and with phones by my bed, it takes me a while to get out of bed sometimes now. Get ready, eat breakfast, clean up breakfast, brush teeth and hair, get your backpack and all this stuff in it. Now she has a saxophone too, and then walk to school. So that's just kind of the basic activities, same as the deck example and the things similar to what you're putting together. So this is what then your sticky notes should look like on your desk or on a table or whatever, wherever you're working. You want to lay them out in a way that makes order sense. And sometimes things are happening at the same time, right? So it's not always linear. So what we have is, so the green is me, and the yellowish, yellow is Alex. So I get up, I get her up at some point, I get ready, she gets dressed, coffee has to happen, I make breakfast, and then we both eat breakfast, I clean up, she goes upstairs, brushes her hair and teeth, finds her backpack and whatever other junk she needs, and winter gear and all that stuff, and then we leave. We head out the door for school. Now, one of the things you got to remember that we talked about last time is that not everything is critical. So if I really was being like a hardcore project manager, I would assume that I don't have to clean up in the morning. Now, it's nice to clean up in the morning, but doesn't have to happen. So then we be sure to take out things that are nice to haves and not requirements. Because if we're trying to figure out how long it's going to take to get out of bed and to get out the door, then we have to make sure that we're only counting the critical things that need doing. Now, if we have extra time, then we could add things in, but we want to focus on the essential tasks, which is why creating this is important, to really start thinking about those essential tasks. Okay, so that's our basic schedule. This is called a flow chart. And so it's an activity list that's been put into dependencies. The other thing that this implies, but I'll just say out loud because it's a project management thing, is that the assumption here is that I have to get ready before I make coffee. I have to make breakfast before I can eat breakfast. Alex brushes her hair after she eats, or brushes her teeth after she eats. So it's a dependency. It has to happen in order. Now, in my case, I always get ready before I make coffee in my house because I sleep on the 2nd floor and the coffee's downstairs. So and on the weekends, I might stumble down the stairs in my bathrobe and make coffee, but that's not a normal school day routine. So coffee usually comes after getting ready. All right, so then the next thing we want to do is we want to assign a duration. So every sticky note you have, you want to assign a duration of how long you think it's going to take. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. One is give it your best shot of what I think. So making breakfast, we literally have usually a cold breakfast. So we have toast or cereal. It's pretty easy. We don't make pancakes or bacon or any of that stuff, or eggs. So we just have a carbohydrate-tastic breakfast and we're out the door. So usually that's like a 5-minute thing. Sometimes we get creative. I might whip up some eggs, which takes maybe 10 minutes. And so what I do in this case is, because there's some flexibility depending on how we're feeling, how the night went. When they're younger, you know, there's a lot of like, they don't listen and you're like, ah, maybe, and older too. My daughter's 11, which is dreamy. So she does everything great. But so what I would do is give a time frame of how long you think this might take you. So in this flow chart, in this case with Alex and I getting ready in the morning, I've given a range of time it takes. So here's 50, like getting up for me, 15 minutes to 30 minutes. That's from like waking up and laying there and checking my calendar, thinking about the day. And then sometimes I get sucked into an email or a Facebook feed, and then I'm in bed for half an hour. And then I go, I gotta get up. And then getting ready depends on if I'm dealing with the hair or if I'm just pulling the hair back. So, and then of course the kid is pretty, you know, sometimes you got to chase her and sometimes she figures it out on her own. And sometimes she drives you crazy. And sometimes you're going, dude, you can't wear that. It's 20 below zero. You can't wear capris. You got to go put on the pants. So anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So what I've done here is show a range. Now, it's not as common showing a range for work. What we tend to do on a very, very big project is you can see where if you had a range for everything, it would be overwhelming. If you're not used to building this, building a schedule, then the nice thing about doing the range is that you can create 2 different schedules and get a sense for what is an optimistic schedule and what is a worst case or pessimistic schedule. So I'm going to show you how to do, if you do the ranges, like on the best day, it takes me 5 minutes to eat. And on the worst day, it takes her 15 minutes to eat or whatever. Then you can actually construct 2 different durations and get a sense for kind of where the good and the bad days look like. Okay. And that's what we're going to do today, because once you get good at this, and you're used to it and you've done, let's say you're doing the same project, let's say you build 1,000 decks, you can just whip this out in 10 seconds. Like my boyfriend, Cappy, he can literally take a look at a deck and tell you how much it's going to cost, like just without doing anything, and how long it'll take, because he's done it so much. When we first start out, you got to give it a little more detail and a little more options. So what we do is we have to, so what I did in this case is we have to leave the house at 7:50 to get her to school on time. So what I did is I started at the end and I backed into it. So let me just show you that. So if we start here at 7:50, so this is our worst case scenario. This is like the thing that takes the longest, which is the end number, right? So here's 7:50, we got to walk out the door. So if we back that off, if we go down here and we say, okay, 7:50 minus 5 minutes is 7:45. We take 7:45, we minus 15 minutes, that's 7:30. We take 7:30, we minus 15 minutes, that's 7:15. Follow me? I'm going to assume yes. If you don't know, let me know. If you're not getting where I'm getting the numbers. So what we do is when we subtract out, then we take 7:15, we subtract 20 minutes, that's 6:55. We take 6:55, subtract 10 minutes at 6:45. That's when Alex has to get out of bed to get out the door at 7:50. Now for me, I get arranged breakfast. I take longer because I don't like to be rushed in the morning. So I take 7:15, subtract 10 minutes to get 7:05, take 7:05, subtract 30 minutes. I don't know where I got 6:31. I think I actually took this 4 minutes out of that. There it is, 7:01, 4 minutes. This arrow should be down here, right? And then I have 30 minutes to get ready, take 6:31 minus 30, that's 6:01. So I have to get up about 45 minutes before Alex on a bad day for me to have everyone have enough time to get out the door. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that this eat breakfast time. So here we have, does it matter if I eat breakfast at 7:15 or if I eat breakfast at 7:45? Doesn't matter. That's called float. So that means that I can eat right when Alex eats, or I can eat, like, she can go eat breakfast, I can go check my email, and then I'll grab breakfast when she's brushing her hair. Or so that eat breakfast piece is called float. You have a whole, like, basically a 7:05 to 7:45 for me to eat breakfast. So that's really powerful because that gives me the flexibility, and I understand when I can do things where I have extra time in my calendar. Sort of like seeing a calendar gap and you're like, ooh, I can do more stuff in there. You know, you're not going to do a lot because you can't go anywhere, but it does give you some flexibility. So that's the worst case scenario. That's, if you look up here, I have an hour, 49 minutes at the top of the screen. So if we do the other way and we do the fastest way back, so we still start, yeah, I already talked about float. We still start with 7:50 as a departure time, but we only take the small one. So 7:50 minus 5 minutes, 7:45 minus 5 this time to 7:40, minus 5 to 7:35. And then she can get up at 7:30, or she's getting dressed at 7:30. And then she's actually getting up at 7:25. So now she can theoretically, best case scenario, from getting up to leaving for school in 35 minutes. Now, let's be real. This does not happen. It's technically possible. It's not practically possible. So, or it's not practically every day. The great news is we all know that if you roll out of bed a half hour late, you can still probably make it out the door in time. But that's not how I want to be. Now, some people's companies are run that way, like a hair on fire all the time, race. How long is that tenable? How long can you do that? Not very long before you start feeling burnout hard, right? So it's really smart to think about what is a practical schedule for you to do, okay? And so we're going to talk about that best case versus worst case scenario and how to balance that out a little bit. So now what you can do is, since you've done this, now that you have your sticky notes, you can put your durations and be calculating this. Now, maybe you've already done it as I've been talking. Some people the math is not so worrying, and some people the math is intimidating. So just roll with it. So now you can do this with your project and at least understand, like, okay, this deck project, it could get done in 7 hours, or it could take us 17 hours. So now you have at least a range, right? At least you have a sense of the timing it's going to take you. So that's the range of it. Now, we talked about float. So remember, I had 45 minutes for breakfast last time. Now I have pretty much no time. I have between 7:30 and 7:50. So now I have 20 minutes for breakfast instead of 45. So now my float is also much smaller. I have much less flexibility. That's the only thing I have flexibility in this whole schedule. And that is even smaller. It's even tighter. So if something goes wrong, I have no time in here to fix anything. Although it does give me, I think, I don't know, a couple, like, what was it? Hold on. Almost an hour more of sleep. So let's just rock star that, shall we? Like, that's not such a bad deal. So if I need more sleep, oops, I know I can get it. I know I can stay in bed a little longer and still get everything done. Again, not how I want to do it every time. So the fun part is when you take this and you translate it into a Gantt chart. So again, super nerdy, hang in there with me. So, but because this is what this is showing you is all the tasks you need to do and in the order you need to do them and how they relate to each other. You can imagine that where any of these come together, getting the backpack, leaving for school, when things split and then they come back, those are key places that you can really get in trouble. Because if something gets split up, like let's say I'm looking at my deck, and let's say that all of a sudden I'm trying to do the handrail before I do the finished decking. and that's the reverse, or I have to wait because something didn't get done fast enough. So that's why you want to make sure that you are keeping track and monitoring as you go. So the fun part is you take this network diagram, or flow chart is another word. Network diagram's the official word for it. And then you make it into a Gantt chart. I don't know where my title slide went, but anyway, it's fine. And I just screenshotted this out of a spreadsheet, right, out of Excel. So you don't have to have fancy software. I always say, if you cannot do this on a wall or on your desk or in a spreadsheet or literally on graph paper, then you're not going to be able to do an app well. A lot of people want a technical solution and want to jump into a technical solution right away. But let me tell you, if you can't do this, like with a paper and pencil, then you won't be able to use the app right, and you're just going to waste your time trying to build it out. So get this figured out first. So I literally went into Excel. I wrote down all of my tasks on the left side there of the screen, left side in this column. And then I put the time across the top, right? So here we have Rachel get up, Rachel get ready. And so then we can actually see how it lays out. And that's so much fun. I cannot even tell you, because if this was a house build and it was over a 6-month project, I could look, let's say down here and say, finished plumbing needs to happen in October, the second week in October. And it might be May, like hugely beneficial for you, because then you can tell your guys, I don't need you till October. In September, I'll touch base with you. It is massively beneficial to understand what the long-term commitment, human commitments are. And of course, we also, once you build this, let's say this was a plan for a house build, and each one of these tasks was a different contractor or subcontractor, like plumber, electrician, roofer, cider, concrete guy, whatever it might be. And then I could actually start adding up. So here in the 7 o'clock hour, or let's say July, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tasks happening at the same time, which means that A, I'm going to need more money, and B, I need to have much more tighter coordination than when I just have like here in the beginning when there's like one thing happening, right? So the cool thing is what you can also do is say, okay, well, here we need one person, 2 people, 2 things happening, 4 things happen. Like you can really get a sense for the rhythm of what that project's going to look like. Another thing that's really great to do, and you'll see this a lot in Gantt charts if you ever get a chance to see official ones, and I'll show you one in a second, is that this line here is your float. So for me, I put coffee was really a float item. Let's be honest, it's not really a float item. Rachel can attest to you that I do not mess around with my coffee in the morning. But technically, I would not need my coffee until I walked out the door, because I like to carry it when I walk Alex to school. So I could just make it late and pour it in the cup, right? The other thing that's float, remember I talked about the Rachel eating breakfast is really a flow. I have like 20 minutes where I could eat early or eat late, whatever, checking my email or hanging out with Alex or dancing around the kitchen or whatever the heck I want to do. Whatever else might be pressing, take the garbage out, whatever. So what you want to do is you want to put the float in. So you want to show float as beginning of when it's supposed to happen. Float is usually out here with the line that shows you when it's due, but that way you could actually move that left and right as much as you needed to. The other thing I just want to point out is on a lot of Gantt charts, you will see a diamond. That means there's nothing to do, but it's a milestone. So it's a decision, a sign off, a walking out the door, some kind of moment in time that doesn't need it. You don't want to lose it. Like you don't want to lose the activity or the thing that needs to be done, but it doesn't take any time. So those are usually called milestones, or that's how they're illustrated. All right. I don't have a chat window or no. Okay, let me see. I don't see any chats coming in, so that's good. Okay, chat. Okay, cool. I finally found the chat window. Okay, got it. All right, so now we're only have about 10 minutes to go here. So if you start having questions, put them in the thing. But I just have a couple slides left. I'm going to show you some examples of how you think about some of this stuff too. So here is estimating your schedule. So remember I said you have an optimistic and a pessimistic schedule. So remember our optimistic schedule was 65 minutes, an hour and 5 minutes. Our pessimistic schedule was an hour and 49 minutes. That's how long, the longest one. And then I would say the ML is most likely. Okay, don't let this freak you out. It's very straightforward. So what I think, 75 minutes, about right. So that's, if I get Alex out of bed 75 minutes before she walks out the door, we can get all those things done on time. So what we want to do is we want to take the average of the optimistic, and then and the pessimistic goes at the end, and then we multiply the most likely by 4 because we want to weight it stronger, right? So then what we do is we take, let me see if I can just do this for you without freaking this out. So let me just see. So what we would do then is, let me see if I can copy and paste this, because I think not showing you is confusing. So let me, okay. So what we're gonna do is, hang in there with me. Am I still sharing that? No. Your screen is stopped. Okay, I'm gonna reshare that one screen with you. Whoopsie. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna show you what that algorithm, oh, it still hasn't happened. Okay, there we go. Okay, close that. All right, so what we're doing here is I'm gonna just show you what that algorithm looks like when we substitute all of the values in there. So I'm gonna move this over so you can see. Okay, so this is the algorithm, right? And so when we have this, what this looks like is we replace the 0 with 65 because that's where we got it over here, 65 minutes optimistic. Pessimistic was 109 minutes, which we got off our schedule, which we got off our flow chart. And then the most likely is 75 minutes. Now that is my knowledge. So that is your project management knowledge, your brain at work there. And we multiply that by the 75 minutes. Okay, so that all together, if we take our, handy calculator here, and we add 60, well, we add 65 plus, then 4 times 75 is 300, and then plus 109, that equals 474. But we were trying to take the average, so then we're going to divide that by 6. Now, if this math is throwing you, don't sweat it. We could walk through it some other time. 474. So, so this is giving us 474 divided by 6 is 79 minutes. So what this does for us, and that's where I got this here. Highlight. Okay, so that's how I came up with 79 minutes, or an hour and 19 minutes. So what I'm doing here is I am, I'm going to share this, and let me see if I have to reshare. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the activity list that I put together and found the optimistic schedule and the pessimistic schedule, weighted against my experience, and then tried to come up with a mathematical number that seems to make the most sense. Because frankly, we're always optimistic. We always tend to guess short. I have never worked on a project that came in early. Never, never, never. So, and that is when we automatically add 20% and things like that. So this gives you a formula to give you a number that's less influenced by your optimism, I guess. And so it is a little bit, and so frankly, 79 minutes, an hour and 19 minutes a day, that is easily enough time for Alex and I to get up, get ready to go and out the door. And so actually that would be a very casual morning, and maybe that's what we should be doing. Maybe that's what we should be doing. All right. The last thing I wanted to share with you is what an actual Gantt chart looks like out of a fancy software program. And so this is the same kind of thing. Here you have July, 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 July. This is July 1st through July 31st. So this is a daily calendar. And here you can see task 1 is starting on July 2nd, going through July 19th. There we go. Task 2 starts on July 4th. And it goes to July 29th. So you can see how an actual Gantt chart works. Now, this is not showing float or anything. So it's not giving you, it's not being clear for you what you can do from a flexibility perspective, which for me, that's the joy and fun of being a project manager, is you can move things around and figure out how to double up things. But the one thing this will tell you, if we look at the 12th, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tasks going on at the same time. Now, if you didn't have this kind of tool, you probably would not be prepared for that to happen in a way that's as efficient as you could be. So that's the power of this. The bigger the project, the more complex, the more people, the more moving parts, the more important it is to have tools that you can actually track and understand what's going on. And then frankly, if something doesn't get done, let's say task 3 has to be delayed, you can literally move this red bar off to the right, and then you can see immediately what it's affecting and how to change it, how to address it, how to sort it all out. So those are the tools and the fun parts of project management that I wanted to share with you today. Again, reach out to me anytime. Happy to talk. I'm going to stop sharing and see if you guys have any questions. So again, we have the stakeholder management structure with the, the low to high influence, low to high need. Very important on the human side of it. And that could also be your team members. So let's say you have an internal team member that's just needier than somebody else, or maybe it's your boss is involved. And then we get into the technical managing the work piece, which is yummy in a lot of ways. Not humans specifically, so it's a little cleaner. But again, of course, once you start assigning people or thinking about who you have on your team, you have to think about, when you do durations, you have to think about, well, does this take somebody 10 minutes or does it take this person an hour? And so you do have to take into account maybe the best practices. Maybe like, let's say a CPA is a great example. Maybe a CPA would normally take 6 hours to do a 1040 if you had all of your stuff to them. I don't know. It's tax season. I don't know how long it takes a good CPA. So rock star. But let's say a brand new CPA who's not sure what they're doing, or maybe someone doing it at home. This is a great example. Might take somebody 2 days to do it at home. I've done it a lot, so I can whip it out pretty fast. But if it's somebody new doing it, it might take you 2 days, right? So that's 2 days of my time versus, let's say, 6 days of a CPA's time. The other thing about having that scheduled out then is it gives you the power to decide, is it worth my time for 2 days, or is it worth me hiring somebody to do it in half the time or a third of the time? And so that's also the awesome power of doing a schedule and this project management style, because of the project management approach, because it also empowers you to make those kinds of decisions too. And we make these trade-offs all the time intuitively. Do I paint my own house or do I hire somebody to paint it? For me, it has a lot to do with the size of the project. I love hands-on work. That's why I did the deck example. I love hands-on work. I love painting. I like baking. I like landscaping. I like gardening. But I have this thing, it's like a 2-hour time limit for me. On any one day, I'm famous in my family for like after 2 hours, I'm over it. Like anything that takes longer than that to process and do, it's like I can do like gardening for like a half a day because I know like I usually have goals and I can focus. And there's lots of different things. I might be digging up something or dealing with the compost or pulling weeds or watering. There's different activities. But if I have to do one thing for more than 2 hours, it's not like painting. Yikes. And it took me a long time to figure out, thinking about project management, that let's think about painting a house or painting a room on the inside of your house. Well, you have to take everything off the wall, repair all the holes, spackle all the holes. Are you going to paint the ceiling different? If you're going to paint the ceiling a different color, then you have to tape off the ceiling. You have to take off all the outlets. You have to tape around all your woodwork. It took me a long time to figure out that 80% of the work is the prep. The painting is like nothing time-wise compared to the prepping of it. And so that's another way that you can avoid getting into trouble with work, is that you can plan out all of the nitty-gritty little things that you have to do. If I was just looking to say, well, I can paint this room in 2 hours, that is a totally different thing than how long will it actually take me to prep and paint and clean up? That's probably a 6-hour job or longer. So that's why it's really important to be able to identify all your tasks and put them in an order that makes sense for you. And frankly, that's why, you know, that old saying, many hands make light work. It's because you take a linear schedule and you compress it because you have more than one person or maybe 3 people, because it gets all the tasks done much more quickly. So it gives that structure to bigger challenges. So those were the skills and tools I wanted to share with you today. Again, if you're interested in more of that, this is such a light treatment of it and it goes so fast. And I'm really sorry it has to go so fast, but I wanted to get you some things today since Shiloh was asking. And so if you have questions or something wasn't clear or you'd like to go over something again, happy to do so. Or if you are tackling a big project and you're not sure you're doing it right, or you have questions about how to get started, please feel free to reach out anytime. I really enjoy that. I guess the other thing to just remember that we talked about last time was there's always changes. So, right, Shiloh says she just needs to sign up for the class. Yes, you do. So the trick of the matter is there's always changes too. So you have to be ready for those. The more organized you are, the more flexible you can be, which seems very counterintuitive, but it's so true. And so be sure to keep working on those schedules and know that don't get too attached to them. Just know that they're empowering you to be adaptable as the project goes along. So, all right. Well, if you don't have any questions for me, then thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time on this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful April day. It's like 60 some degrees outside. So I'm going to hang up here. I'm going to go sit on my porch and read a book. So I will talk to you guys soon. You know how to find me, or if you're not sure how to find me, but bug Rachel, she knows how to find me. So thanks so much, guys. Have a great day. Bye.